In depth with Unified Fire Authority Chief Dominic Burchett tonight. Not only did UFA send firefighters to California this week, but Chief Burchett's brother was deployed in California back in 2018. Draper City Fire Battalion Chief Matthew Burchett was killed by a tree strike following a retardant drop from aircraft working the Mendocino complex fires in California on August 13, 2018. Dominic sat down with me to speak for the first time about this more than 6 years after his brother's passing. Why talk about this now? Why be a little bit more open about what happened to your family?
I think through a lot of healing and through a lot of processing, it's finally time to open up and share. I think especially if the messaging can be well received, I think it's important to finally open up and talk about it.
I mean, if you put yourself back in August of 2018, do you remember what that was like to get that phone call or get that notification that something wasn't right?
Yeah, and I apologize if I get a little emotional, but I was in Idaho fishing on a river, and my brother was supposed to be on that trip with us, but he went on this deployment instead, and it was one of the best fishing days of my life. I remember it specifically, but then something just didn't feel right, and none of us knew what that was until we got the phone call that evening. His wife got a hold of us, and we were in an area that was very remote, Idaho, where there was no cell service, but for some reason her call came through. So that was a piece of reflection, as well as how did that phone call make it through, which has been it's always been a kind of a joke for us, because we've gone back to that exact same campsite and we cannot get a phone call out. We packed up and drove home immediately, just to be near family and start making notifications and phone calls, and I don't think any of us knew what was next. It was trying to figure out what happened and how to feel. I would consider my brother at the time one of the most highly trained wildland firefighters in the state, and accidents happen, despite mitigating risks and doing everything as safely as we can. Accidents do and will happen. So it's a consideration when we come into this line of work, to understand that, and that's a message that I share with my new firefighters now when I go out and talk to them about recruit camp. Is this job is fantastic. It's the best job in the world, and it comes with risks, and some of those I'm living, and I don't want them to come into it blindly and not think about that side of it.
How did you go about the daily job of working in fire after that?
Well, to be honest, I didn't do it very well for a while. We took a couple of weeks off. We took some time with our family, and then I felt like I had to get back to work to be around my people in that setting. And I was there. I wasn't present, but I was there in person. And just being around that group of people at the time, I was in our fire training division, and they were some of my best friends, and that's who I needed to be with, associate with, and let them help me kind of go forward. Being in it at the time, going in the funeral procession, and every overpass was covered with firefighters and people waving and smiling, we couldn't have needed that more. It was so powerful for our family to see that, and I think for every firefighter to see that that's the kind of support that you have when you enter this profession.
Had you been out on an assignment in California as well before? I
have, yeah, and after. I went the following year, despite my parents' wishes. But I went, and I felt like I needed to go. I couldn't let his death keep me from what I love to do and what I signed up to do.
Did you almost not take that assignment?
I did, yeah, because that would have been the easy answer. I don't want to put my family through that again. But I did that with my dad's support. My mom wasn't quite ready. In fact, she just texted me a little bit ago and said, "Please tell me you're not going to California." So she still has that. I'm never going to go out again in her eyes, but yeah, it was hard.
What's it like to sit in your seat and send 8 guys to California, given what you've seen has taken place there, and the hazards of not just fire itself, but everything else that's out there right now?
Yeah, I mean, it's a risk. We're sending people to an area that they haven't been in a fuel type they haven't been in, and fire behavior that they haven't seen, so it is a little more dangerous. We send people that are very highly trained with very good experience that I trust will keep our folks safe. But I have to question that every time, and I think every fire chief does when these come up. It's not just an opportunity to make some extra money and get some experience. It's a risk. And when they're gone, I'm literally sick to my stomach until they come home safe. It's devastating, and I'm honored, and I think I can speak for all the fire chiefs in Utah. We're honored to be able to help in a time like this.
How close were you and your brother?
Well, I've said this before publicly, but there was very few people that would say, "Where's Matt?" or "Where's Dom?" It was always, "Where's Matt and Dom?" We were always together. He was just a couple years older than me. We did the same things. There's a couple pictures behind them of us climbing mountains and skiing, and we just did everything together. And I looked up to him like my mentor. And yeah, I mean, I think a lot of people have that relationship with their siblings, but I feel like mine was extra special. My brother, of course, he was a couple years older than me. I was still in high school, and he got a job on the wildland crew just because he liked to be outside. And I had to go to school the next day, and his pager went off at 10 o'clock at night or something, and he got kicked out on a wildland fire on the east bench here, and he was gone for 2 days. And then he came back, and he smelt horrible, and he was dirty and gross, and I was like, man, I want in. That is what I want to do. And partly because he was my idol, and that's what I wanted to do, anything he did. But being outside, being dirty, being able to work hard, that checked all the boxes for me. And so as soon as I graduated high school, I followed in his footsteps. I don't think he ever thought he would be the fire chief, but I know he was going to be the fire chief somewhere. And that was honestly part of my decision when I decided to put in for this, was to help carry on his legacy through being the fire chief, because he would have been the fire chief somewhere.
What would he have said to you if he had the opportunity to be there that day you were sworn in as chief?
I can't believe it. No. Well, he was my biggest cheerleader for sure, and he couldn't have been more proud. Yeah, I think the thing that really made him stand out was, yes, he liked going on calls. Yes, he liked helping the public, but more so, he loved helping other firefighters. He loved developing others around him, and he would find people that needed a push or needed help or needed help identifying a career path, and he was so good at seeing what people were good at and helping foster those qualities to make them the best they could be, so that they could be better at serving the public. He was a really good paramedic. He was a really good captain. He was a really good battalion chief. But all of that was because he was so good with people, and he really, really loved mentoring other people. And I that's where I take credit, because I think he honed his skills in mentoring me my entire life, and he figured out how to push me and figured out how to make me better.
Well, Chief Burchett told me that Matt's wife and son are moving forward and doing well despite the circumstances. Each year around the anniversary, they head back up to Idaho with family and friends. They have a big camp out, they do some fishing, and they try to reflect on the good things. Brothers in service, the two work together on a wildland fire crew, a hotshot crew, and at UFA together for a brief time. And at the time of his passing in 2018, Matthew David Burchett was 42 years old.